Why didn't you call the police?
Lots of lights were on. I figured somebody else had called already.
Number 10. The Son of Sam. There have been various Son of Sam type laws introduced over the years, but the general goal is always the same: to prevent criminals from profiting from their crimes after conviction.
The detectives of the Brooklyn Omega Squad, part of that 300 Cop 44 killer manhunt, captured the man they say is Son of Sam.
This goes back to the fear that David Berkowitz, the notorious Son of Sam, would seek a book or movie deal while in prison to tell his story.
I believe that I was demon-possessed.
Different states have drafted their own version of this law, only for some of them to be struck down as unconstitutional. In New York State, victims and their families will receive notification if the criminal earns more than $10,000 from telling their story. It's a delicate balance between freedom of speech and profiting from tragedy. Number 9. Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. The two individuals in our next entry may not have known each other, but their place in history was vital towards the expanding of hate crime definition in the United States. The Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act was introduced and passed in the fall of 2009 after both men lost their lives as a result of prejudice and bigotry.
This afternoon I signed into law the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act.
The law not only made it easier for federal authorities to investigate cases of this nature, but the act also expanded wording to include crimes perpetrated due to one's gender or sexual identity.
It's one of the mysteries that keeps you going. I can't ever really know what he might have been able to accomplish, but I have a pretty good idea of what we can accomplish in his name.
Although it cannot make up for the senseless loss of these two lives, it has arguably helped many people seek justice in the wake of such crimes. Number 8. Polly Klaas. Polly Klaas was taken from her home during a slumber party on October 1, 1993, and the tragedy had far-reaching effects on California legislature. For starters, support for three strikes laws earned a lot of traction. Her kidnapper, Richard Allen Davis, had a lengthy criminal record, though there were no open warrants when police initially stopped him after being notified of a suspicious car. The idea that felony criminals should serve automatic life sentences when they commit multiple serious crimes was made easy by Davis's repugnant and unrepentant behavior during the trial. Furthermore, California Highway Patrol expanded access to their all-points bulletins to local authorities in the aftermath of Polly's death. Number 7. Rebecca Schaefer. Living life in the public eye isn't easy, especially when stalkers and obsessed fans come into play. This was unfortunately what caused the loss of a young and promising star in the form of My Sister Sam actress Rebecca Schaefer.
Thanks for coming, Brandon. And Sam says that you're welcome here anytime you want.
Robert John Bardo stalked the actress for years, attempting to crash the set of My Sister Sam, and even hiring a private investigator to find out where Schaefer lived via the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Bardo eventually shot Schaefer at her home, and her death prompted lawmakers to draft stricter anti-stalking legislation in its wake.
I couldn't live with myself and say she was a wonderful girl and we loved her and we missed her, and not try to affect it.
The Driver's Privacy Protection Act was also made into law after this incident, making it more difficult for others to find personal information via the DMV. Number 6. Johnny Gosch.
We're waiting for you to come home. We're doing everything in our power to get you back.
This cold case was the subject of a 2014 documentary titled Who Took Johnny? But it also changed how police respond to reports of missing children. Johnny Gosch was taken during his paper route in the early morning hours of September 5, 1982, and he has not been seen since. At the time of his disappearance, policy in Des Moines, Iowa stated that someone couldn't be labeled as a missing person until 72 hours had gone by. The Gosch case resulted in legislation that changed all of this, making it easier for police to begin an investigation. The Johnny Gosch bill requires authorities to immediately treat all missing persons reports of a child as credible, and to respond accordingly. Number 5. Megan Canka. How well do you really know your neighbor? This was the inspiration behind Megan's Law, a subsection of laws that require the public to be able to access information of convicted sex offenders in their area.
A neighbor who lived diagonally from my house was outside, and he lured her into his home to see a puppy dog.
The specific case was that of 7-year-old Megan Canka, whose neighbor, Jesse Temendekwas, lured and assaulted her before taking her life. Temendekwas' criminal history with little to no rehabilitation was not available to Canka's family. And as a local assemblyman by the name of Paul Kramer was quoted as saying, quote, Megan Canka would be alive today had a public registry been easily accessible by her family.
I don't think about him at all, and I like that, and I thought he took so much from us that I wasn't going to let him take any more.
Number 4, Ernesto Miranda. You've heard it a million times on television and in movies, but do you know the actual origins behind your Miranda rights?
You're under arrest! You know the routine. Very good. You have the right to remain silent. Now what else?
Although Ernesto Miranda was a criminal and his second trial did have the same results of a conviction, it's the circumstances of his arrest that changed the law. This was because Miranda wasn't informed of his right to remain silent so as not to incriminate himself, and was also, quote, refused an opportunity to consult with his counsel.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish one.
His confession was deemed inadmissible as evidence, and the state of Arizona had to retry him with said confession omitted from the record. The Supreme Court case Miranda v. Arizona now requires that all arresting officers inform you of your right to silence and an attorney.
The department was forced to drop the charges because you forgot to read him his Miranda rights.
Number 3, Amber Hagerman. Most people are familiar with Amber Alerts. They inform us whenever the case of a child going missing is reported in our area.
Confirming the abduction, Amber Alert. Holly White, female, 18 months.
However, it's vitally important that we remember the alert's namesake, Amber Hagerman. While riding her bicycle back in 1996, Hagerman was taken and murdered. Her killer has never been found. The case increased demand for immediate response to any sort of similar report involving minors. And today, Amber Alerts go out on radio, television, telephone, internet, and highway communication devices in order to maximize public awareness and response.
We have an Amber Alert for 16-year-old Samantha Renee Wilcox of Wichita.
There are also related alerts for missing seniors, called Silver Alerts, and police, known as Blue Alerts. Number 2, Adam Walsh. The abduction and death of Adam Walsh is arguably the most well-known case on this list, thanks largely to the public presence of Walsh's father, John, as the host of America's Most Wanted.
For 27 years, we've been asking, who could take a 6-year-old boy?
Still, it is impossible to overstate how much the Walsh family has worked to help the families of victims over the years, as Adam's case was responsible, in part, for the establishment of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Adam's taking from a Florida mall was also the impetus for the Code Adam program that's used in retail environments. An employee will now page information over the intercom to help find a child that's been reported as having disappeared.
There were cops who said, well, depending on the age of the kid, we're going to wait 24 hours. If it's over a certain age, we're going to wait 48 hours. The first 4 hours are crucial.
Number 1, Kitty Genovese.
Call red, call 911. Call red, call 911.
Dialing 911 seems like such an instinctive act that it's easy to forget this wasn't always how emergencies were called into police. Kitty Genovese was followed, assaulted, and stabbed by Winston Mosley while she was returning home after a late-night shift working at a bar. The crime had multiple witnesses in the form of Genovese's neighbors, but some were reportedly too scared to call police, while others had difficulty getting through on a line.
People are looking out their windows. They see Kitty Genovese here. They see her struggle to her feet.
At the time, any emergencies would be called into the operator, who would then transfer the call to the appropriate authorities only when they had the opportunity to do so.
And you didn't see anything? She was lying in that courtyard all night. It was dark.
This delayed response would, in part, influence the establishment of the 911 emergency system we use today. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.